If you're tired of overgiving, of shrinking yourself to be chosen, of feeling like love, peace, or abundance is something you have to earn, I want you to know this. You're not broken. You're just unpracticed in believing you matter. There is a way to live differently. And this is exactly why I created You Matter, an 8-week, soul-deep course to help you remember your worth, reclaim your power, and rewrite every relationship in your life, starting with the one you have with yourself. Enrollment is now open. You can find more information on my website, www.lindsaymorlock.com. Come walk with me on this journey, and I'll show you how your worthiness was never up for debate. The world is waking up, and you finding your way here today is no coincidence. The spirit world always has a way of guiding us where we most need to be at the absolute perfect time. I'm your host, Lindsay Morlock, and you're listening to the Guided Podcast, where we explore how the spirit world works on our behalf to guide us along our paths. This is where you'll learn how to live a life that is both conscious and connected, so you can supercharge your pathway to healing and open to life's magic and miracles. Come along this journey to see how guided you truly are. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Guided Podcast. Today's conversation is going to be taking a slightly different form than what you might be used to from Catherine and I. So Catherine is with me, our resident intuitive astrologer, my dear friend, my soul sister on this journey. But instead of our usual episode format, we're here to share something a bit more personal and behind the scenes that's been going on. And so originally, I had started the Guided Podcast because I wanted to help people understand what it really looked like to live a life led and guided by spirit. And Catherine and I have been walking this path side by side, supporting one another through the highs, through the lows, our shadows, our breakthroughs for a long time now. And we've built this deep rhythm of connection where we regularly process what's unfolding in our lives and we offer each other guidance along the way. And something beautiful has emerged from that, not just guidance, but true growth. And authenticity has been a major theme for both of us this past year. How we live, how we show up, how willing we are to let go of anything that no longer serves our highest path. And as a part of that, that's meant shedding relationships, shedding beliefs and old patterns and old identities. And it's taken real honesty, first with ourselves, and then also with each other along the way about where we are in our individual journeys at any given moment, and then where we are collectively in any of our partnerships. And so when I first invited Catherine onto the podcast well over a year ago, it was honestly because I love astrology, but I don't get it. And so Catherine has this way of speaking about the transits that just clicks for me on such a soul level. I think she makes something that feels very intangible, so practical, so grounded, and really helps you understand how to use this information and practically apply it to your growth and your ascension. And so it felt so aligned to have her share her magic here, not only for my own growth, totally selfishly, but also for all of you listening as well. And so at first, we thought we were just going to try a few episodes together and see what happened. But what ended up unfolding for both of us became so much more. So for me personally, this podcast really became a beacon during a time when I was feeling so burnt out and joy deprived in my life. And so recording these episodes with Catherine every week just brought me back to life. It reawakened my spark and it made my journey a little less lonely. And so as a fellow entrepreneur, that kind of connection is invaluable. And for Catherine, this opportunity came at a time when she was ready to share her voice and her gifts more fully. And so it's been a mutual exchange of energy, of healing, of friendship in a way that has just had such mutually reciprocal benefits for both of us. And about 2 weeks ago, I got one of those unmistakable cosmic smacks from Spirit, you know the kind, and I was guided to shift the podcast into a new season, one with more solo episodes from me, and Catherine simultaneously had been feeling the subtle nudges of being called to expand her own YouTube channel and step more boldly into her own space. And so when I shared my cosmic smack with her, she kind of already knew because she's deeply connected in that way as well. And so when this happened, we both had this moment, I think, of our hearts dropping, and we both were sad because we love this collaboration. We have so much fun doing it. And we also knew that this is what it means to live a guided life. This is the reality. It's not linear. It asks us to trust, even when we don't fully understand where we're headed or why we're being guided in certain directions. And in this case, we could both feel that spirit wasn't pulling us apart to divide us, but rather to help us grow in different aligned direction. And so I really wanted to highlight this, and Catherine wanted to come on and talk about this as well, because changes like these can really cause rifts in relationships. And it was so beautiful the way we were able to meet each other in love and in truth, and to really honor our individual emotions and also support our individual paths and the unique needs we each have in building our respective businesses moving forward, and to really hold space for both the grief and the gratitude, and hold space for the uncertainty of what comes next for both of us. With all of that said, I kind of want to pass the mic to Catherine so she can share more about her experience with this, what this journey has meant to her, and where she's feeling called. And then we're going to dive into how this is like just another day when you're living the guided life. So Catherine, feel free to jump in here.
Thank you. So as you said, when you first approached me about the idea of let's do some astrology episodes on your podcast, I was really excited and really honored because I had never done anything like that before, and really wanted to be able to, I say to people, thank you for letting me speak my favorite language, right? It's definitely, the language of astrology is a love of mine that I truly could talk about all day long, every day. It's just a true love. And so I was so excited about this possibility. I also had been already, before you even brought it up, been getting the nudges about needing to be getting out there and sharing, and completely stumped and in resistance of how to do that on my own. And so it was such a safe space to know that I could share my love for astrology with everybody in the space with you, already, such an experienced podcaster, knowing that you were going to be able to hold that container for these episodes. And I also remember at the very beginning saying to you, I don't even know if I can talk long enough to fill an episode. And you're like, don't worry about it. We'll just talk back and forth. It'll be fine. And we were just commenting about how as the episodes continued, I mean, really, I have more than enough to say, right? And the content was not the problem, because I love astrology so much and I had so much to say. But even in the latest New Moon in Taurus episode, I'm like, wow, did I even give you a word in edgewise? So how beautiful to be given this opportunity, not only to share with your audience and anybody that came across these episodes, to be able to share my love for astrology, but also to have such a safe and supportive space to grow in sharing that has been really great. And it's something that I definitely will be continuing. But you're right. When you brought it to me that we needed to shift how things were coming out with guided, I knew. I didn't know actually that it was going to be, we were going to let go of the astrology sections of guided. I just knew that I was being asked to show up more on my own. And I had actually been having conversations with spirit. Yeah, that's awesome. But, there's only so many hours in the day. Like, when am I supposed to be doing all of this stuff? And so this is how that space is opening up, really. So still doing the moon cycle forecasts, but shifting them to doing them individually and doing them on my YouTube channel. It's same amount of prep time, still me getting the same information, unfortunately without your beautiful input. But that's where the space is going to open up from, to be able to do that. So I did, we talk about the guided life, right? And I knew, but I didn't know. I knew I was being asked to do more on my own. I didn't really know how to make that happen. And so I feel I just got that picture of being kicked out of a nest, like the guided podcast has been that safe nest for me. And now I'm being kicked out of the nest.
I think that's such an important metaphor for people to understand, because I think when we think about living the guided life, what I want people to really hear from what you're saying, from what we're saying, is spirit really knows the best way to move us where we most want to be. And you've always known that you're meant to be in the spotlight, that you're meant to find your right stage. And from what you were saying, you were reticent when we first started this podcast. And so this was a beautiful space that not only you could show up and feel supported by me and supported by the platform and the space, but it's interesting because Catherine and I were chatting right before we got on to record this episode. And what we were reflecting on is how I may have given a little bit more input in those earlier astrology episodes. And if you listen to our most recent astrology episode, I think I said 3 words because Catherine got it, right? Like this is her thing now. And so the timing, if we recorded that a while ago when we had no idea that this was even coming into fruition, that we were going to be pivoting. And so I think that's the beauty, is there was even tangible evidence in the last episode that it's, hey, like you're ready to fly, right? And so I love that spirit really helps support us in the ways that we need it in order to build our confidence in our skills, in our talents, to allow us to feel really ready to be seen. And in the spirit of authenticity, one of the things that has really come through loud and clear for me from spirit is that we are not meant to be everybody's cup of tea. And so Catherine and I, as part of this discussion, really had to dive into the fact that we are 2 different people. We are 2 different beings. We embody very different energy. And the people that she will attract through her astrology podcast are some of the guided listeners, but she also has a whole universe just waiting to find her. And similarly, her astrology people may not be in the direction of where my career is headed with my business, with finding worthiness in relationships, right? And so we've both kind of come into our own in the last couple of months where we both have more clarity about what direction we're headed. And it's not surprising in some regards that spirit is now saying, okay, in order for you to be a magnet for your right people, we need you to actually separate at this point to be aligned with your respective audiences. And I think that's one of the things that what I was saying to Catherine earlier is this feels like a microcosm of the macrocosm, in the sense that it's these little things that cause rifts in relationships. You know, this could have been a big conflict between us because Catherine got no warning. Spirit rarely warns us. They're just like, oh, by the way, new direction. You know, that's just how it goes. And because we both understand this guided life, we also have a high tolerance for, okay, let's step back. But you can be the most conscious person in the world and be deeply triggered by a sense of, wait a minute, something that really benefited me is now changing. And Catherine could have reacted very differently than she did. And that could have caused a rift in our relationship. Now, luckily, it's not that we didn't have feelings about this. We were both deeply sad about this change for a number of different reasons. But because we have developed such intimacy in our friendship, we also were able to really air all of the things happening within us for each one of us. And so it brought the connection deeper. And I think that's the thing, right? Allow these things in our lives to build intimacy, to create a deeper connection instead of fearing the intimacy, fearing the potential judgment if you speak your truth, fearing the change. Oftentimes these changes, when you're living the guided life, they are not logical. And so if we push against them, if we resist what spirit is trying to teach us, what spirit is trying to show us, we end up missing out on some really great things.
Yeah. And also to point out that obviously I was completely surprised, especially because it came through a conversation that for me was at like 8 a.m. as I was getting ready for the day. And it was just like, hey, how are you? Oh, okay. We're shifting, right? But because I did have those little nudges, I went, okay, this all feels right. You know, it's that you can feel the truth behind it. That's what I felt in the conversation. and 2 or 3 weeks in resistance to the emotions that were associated with it. Right away, you and I were able to say, wow, I'm sad about this. I feel the truth and the need for this shift, and it's still sad. And that I was able to really come into what I was really surprised to realize once I finally sat down and said, okay, what do I need to see here? Clearly I need to process some sadness, but there's more to it. And it wasn't just sadness, it was grief. And the grief is because the loss, right? It's the ending. And endings always come with beginnings. And me of all people know that 2025 is all about endings and beginnings. This is the year of transitions. And so I was even thinking about it this morning about how this literally got eclipsed. We say that eclipses just close something right out of your life, unexpectedly eclipsed. And that's what happened. This series that we've been doing has been closed and unexpectedly. But it's always for positive change. We talk a lot about how things happen for you. So I had to acknowledge that it was beyond sadness, it was grief. But what really surprised me was I also had to process abandonment. And when I first started on this whole journey and learning like the archetype of my inner child, what I came up with was double abandoned child. And so abandoned. And that was the programming that was running my life. As I've gone through these journeys of really, in particular, the last 5 years of starting to understand emotional processing way beyond the years before of just connecting with intuition, that shifted for me. And so what was really able to come out is I did enough healing around that abandoned wound that my magical child was able to really come out. And I just love because I identify with that so much. Lindsay's always commenting about how like literally synchronicities. I have stories upon stories of the synchronicities of magic that happened in my life, and I just love it. But the abandoned wound is still there. And I really had to process that. I had to process while simultaneously in my mental, logical mind, knowing that I wasn't being abandoned. This is a guided shift. My inner child had to deal with abandonment. And I was really surprised. If I hadn't have taken the time to sit down and really, what's going on? What do I need to move through? What do I need to see? I wouldn't have known that. And so that was interesting. And then I also processed disappointment. And I think that's something that I always forget to look at as like a valid emotion that needs to be processed because I'm disappointed.
Yeah. And disappointment just points to we have to detach from whatever we expected outcomes to be. I feel like it's, in a way, it's like a failed expectation, whether we were consciously expecting to do this forever or not. And I think I'm so glad that you shared all of that because we've talked so much the past several months about creating this sense of emotional safety and security within. And this is how you do it. You lean into all the emotions, right? Emotions are not good, bad, right, or wrong. They are just intuitive messages from your soul. And when we listen to them, we're able to come back to a place of center, to come back to a place of knowing what the higher truth is. And Catherine's logical mind already had the higher truth of this is ultimately for the highest and best of all concerned, but that doesn't mean we don't have emotions about it. And I'm not in judgment of her emotions. I would expect her to have emotions. I had my own emotions. And the abandonment piece is a really interesting one because in a way it was actually playing out as a mirror for both of us, right? Because here in a way I had to quote unquote abandon this project with Catherine in order to not abandon myself. So if I got the guidance that I needed to pivot to be more aligned with my divine direction, I would have been abandoning myself and my truth in order to please and appease my perception of what Catherine needed. And when we do things like this, which by the way, super common, so many people are operating in this way. When we do things like that, we abandon ourselves. We abandon what is in our highest and best good. And down the road, it would just lead to feeling resentful or resentment. It might lead to feeling angry. It might lead to I think in the highest regard, if I were to do that, if I were to keep doing this with Catherine when I know that I'm being guided in a different direction, it wouldn't make me an authentic friend. And I would be showing up inauthentically. And so as we talk about this season so much about living an authentic life, it means not saying yes when it's a no. There is an energetic implication for every choice we make. And I think one of the prevailing themes that Spirit has been showing me over the last year is if we do not choose consciously, others will choose for us, whether that's Spirit, whether that's people in our lives. And so it's so important for us to understand what are the motives underlying our decisions. I mean, I know when I got the guidance, I literally had this like gulp moment of, "Oh, I don't want to tell Catherine this, because I didn't want to disappoint her. I know how much fun we have with this. I know how special this time and this experience is, not just when we are recording, by the way, for those listening. I mean, it extends well beyond that. And so I feel like that was my reaction is I want everybody to be happy. I don't want to disappoint anyone. I don't want to let anyone down. And if I over focus on how others are going to feel, it doesn't mean that I don't consider others. By all means, I do. But I can't abandon myself in order to keep other people happy, right? I think that's the message for everybody listening. Like, where do we abandon ourselves in order to not rock the boat, to keep the peace, to not make waves? And how do we abandon ourselves? Because in order to create this sense of safety and security and belonging within yourself, you have to be deeply connected to yourself and what you need. And when we make decisions from an ego-driven place, there's motive, there's hidden agenda, we're giving to get, it's not authentic. And so what's been so beautiful, I think, about this exchange with Catherine is it's allowed us to really be fully truthful and honest with one another about what's coming up for us in these different things and fumble our way through I'm feeling this way, I'm feeling this way, but also a deepening of our relationship as a result, because it reinforced that we can have these conversations and it can bring us closer together, not divide us. And I really hope more people can understand that as you more deeply connect to you, your desires, your wants, your needs, and stop abandoning yourself, that your relationships actually get better. And the ones that are meant to fall away will fall away, but it creates more authenticity with the people that you have, and it deepens the intimacy and deepens the connection. And I know that's what I value. That's what I want in my relationships. I want them to be authentic. I want to be able to show up as my messy self in all the ways. I mean, I don't know if you remember, Catherine, when I gave you this news and I'm like fumbling over my words because I don't want to say it, but I have to say it, right? Because Spirit gave me the message and they're like, right now, you call her right now. I was like, oh, we're doing this right now. Okay.
For me at 8 a.m, I've been making breakfast, getting ready for my day.
Yeah.
Well, and so two things that came up for me as you were talking about this is, one, how beautiful that through this journey, we have developed the vocabulary and the practices to be able to speak authentically to our emotions. And like you said, the intimacy of our relationship to be able to be vulnerable enough to say, I'm feeling this way without the fear of being judged. Although at the same time that I say that, my inner child still had that fear. And that was the thing that when I went into that processing the abandonment, that's really the whole story that came up from inside. Was I have a pattern throughout my life of having very, very close friendships that basically spontaneously combust and up in flames and really never to be survived. The relationship doesn't, like either in a blaze of glory or even if it fizzled out and we went our own ways, it just was never going to regain that level of closeness. And I realized that was actually a big fear of mine within letting go of this kind of regularly scheduled opportunity to connect in this way was, wait, what does that mean for our friendship? And what does that mean for if we're not offering this piece to each other, what does that mean for how our friendship is going to move forward? And so that was a part of what needed to be processed from the shifting of how we're doing things. The other thing about the abandonment piece is, in as much as you talk about needing to show up for yourself by not acquiescing to keep doing the things for others because you don't want to make them feel bad. On the flip side, the message I keep getting from spirit is, you say you want this. Are you going to show up for yourself? And what I have just ultimate skill in is distraction and procrastination. And so I have been on break for the last couple weeks, which means I am not doing my full-time day job. I had complete space, pretty much do whatever I wanted with my time. And the internal fight to show up for myself in this way with the astrology, with the intuitive work that I love to do, like truly love to do, and yet busying myself and not showing up for myself in this way. And I feel like this is like my next frontier. This is the next part of the journey that spirit is really asking of me is, if you really want this, you have to show up for yourself. You have to schedule the time for yourself. They just made me think about how relationship advice in like a marriage, it's make sure to schedule date night. Because life gets busy and you don't want to let go of that relationship. That's what I feel like I'm being asked to do. I have to schedule it. I have to show up because my life is not going to stop having all these other obligations. And I still really love this and I want to do more. And so if I want to do more, it's up to me.
I love that you brought that up because so many people, I'm sure, myself included, can relate to the fact that it's so easy to show up for other people, right? Because you said to me, I'm never going to let you down. I'm always going to show up for you. And you did, right? All the time. And I'm the same way. If I'm going to show up for another person, I'm going to show up for them when I say I do. And we have to make ourselves just as important in that equation. And I think that's where, like you said, we get distracted or other things become more important. This is a core ego defense, making the important unimportant and the unimportant important. And we have to check ourselves to make sure we're placing our time, our energy, our resources in the direction of our dreams. And I know for me, over the course of the last week, I had a friend in town and there were a few moments where I had an option to abandon myself to go spend more time with her. But I was like, no, I need balance. I need to make sure that I am equally in the equation. And that's partially too, because my friend was here working. So it wasn't like I was just leaving her high and dry. But I think this is the dance that we're learning. How do we put ourselves into the equation of our lives? How do we prioritize what we want? And I think the thing that I've learned so much is that the people who are meant to be in your life are your biggest supporters. Catherine cheers me on when I choose me because I also choose her. But that's the beauty of these kinds of relationships. It's like you get to choose yourself and choose your friend. And there's balance between that. And when we're breaking patterns and we're moving through our shadows and changing our lives as a result of it, the people that you surround yourself with, you want them to elevate you. You want them to move you forward, right? You want that beauty of balance between challenge and support. And I think that's been such a beautiful dance that this podcast really has gifted us both with. And now I think we're also seeing how that's translated to what has become a genuine and real friendship in the process. And this is my wish for, as I move more fully into helping people find their own worth in relationships, I think this is also what it feels like to feel really safe and secure with your right people, right? The right people, even though you have those moments of, I'm a little afraid to speak this truth, the right people make you feel at home to communicate that. When you're being intimate, they hold that space for you to find your way through it. And I think that's been such a beautiful part of this dynamic.
Yeah. And then I think about when you speak about relationship, how this extends out beyond the relationship that you and I have. But that I matter work, that putting yourself in the equation and being able to voice emotion and how you're feeling, this is not something I used to know how to do. It is something that I want to say aggressively worked to learn. And even when after a few years going, I still haven't figured this out. And of course, it's still a learning journey, but I think about, so I have a teenage son, and those dynamics of teenagers to parents classically can be a little challenging, but it even makes me think about how putting yourself in the equation and being able to voice the emotions you're going through, and also being able to come back to people and maybe apologize and say, I'm sorry, I was going through this. I didn't mean to push it out to you or whatever. I'm actually seeing that in our relationship. He had a moment yesterday, got overwhelmed, snapped at me. And I was like, I get you're overwhelmed, but I don't think I deserve that. And I will be out front waiting for you. Not 10 minutes later, he comes out, apologizes, and says, I'm really sorry I spoke to you that way. I was overwhelmed. It wasn't about you. I mean, I think that is like a teenage miracle. Such a representation of where doing this work to find emotional security within yourself and within your relationships extends not only in our business relationship, but it extends into our friendships and our family, and allows for just such a deeper level of intimacy than I really knew was possible. Because that vulnerability says, I'm safe. If I can be vulnerable with you, I'm trusting you to not obliterate my heart. And the only way I trust you with that is because we've gone back and forth of doing this dance of sharing vulnerable times and having it held with care, but also holding ourselves with care. Being able to, I know in the last few weeks, one of the things I had to do is just be like, I just need to go sit and feel sad. I just need to hold myself in these emotions that I'm going through and allow it to really happen instead of brush it away and be like, I knew it was the universe was asking me to shift. I knew it was a year shift, and going into that whole mental space that being like, no, it's okay to sit and feel this. And I feel like part of this has been helping me beyond the astrology, beyond getting comfortable speaking to all of that. We have all in this, especially the last 6 months with Mars and Cancer, been working on this emotional security. And it just does not escape me in any way that now Mars has moved out of Cancer, and we're like, all right, now it's time to be taking bold action. We're in Mars and Leo. We're taking bold action now. And that is exactly what is happening here. And it's kind of amazing.
I love that. And I think you're speaking to every single person's journey on this planet if they choose to step into it, if they choose to accept the mission, which is we are all journeying back to our heart space. We are all essentially learning and unlearning how to have a truer experience of the heart. And not everybody is going to be able to meet you in that journey, right? People come, people go, things come, things go, money comes, money goes, right? Like impermanence is the only constant in our life. And the more that you work to find that sense of emotional safety and security within, you will start to attract the events in your external world that feel more safe, more secure, more peaceful, more harmonious, more balanced. I know even for me, as I've shifted into this place of more emotional safety and security, I can now see how my external reality is mirroring all of that. Finally, it feels like it took me forever to get here. And the other thing that I just keep hearing is where we feel sad, it's normal to feel sad when there's endings, when there's change, right? That's a normal emotion. And the sadder we feel, I keep getting flashed to just how deeply that sadness reflects how much love is really there to begin with, right? And so I think we can honor the love and the lessons and all the positive that has been infused in experiences. And we get to carry all of that with us forward in our heart. And Catherine and I are never shutting ourselves off to this coming back together. If it might be in a different format, it might be on a different topic. We don't know what the future holds. And I think that's the thing. It's like allowing ourselves to move with the wave and move with our guidance, but also moving forward with an open heart and being comfortable. And this is my occupational hazard of not being comfortable, being like, I don't know. I always want to know. I am deeply uncomfortable and I feel deeply vulnerable when with uncertainty. And that's been a big part of my journey, is learning how to just sit in the vulnerability of uncertainty and move into that, lean into that a little bit more. And so there's a lot up in the air. There's a lot that's uncertain, but all the possibility also exists in that uncertainty. And so I think this was just a beautiful example. Something people might, I don't know, people might hear this and think, wow, it's like such a small thing to them. Maybe it was a big thing for us. And I feel like there's these small things every single day that we minimize, we deny, we suppress, but they have a big impact internally on our energy. And so Spirit always says, don't make light of any emotions. They all need to be witnessed. They all need to be honored because they're all directional. And if we don't move them, they are taking up energetic space in our body and they prevent us from stepping more fully into what we really do want to create in our lives. And so the number one way that you cannot abandon yourself is allow yourself to feel your feelings, witness the full range of everything that is coming up for you, and allow yourself the grace and space to hold yourself through whatever it is, no matter how big or small.
I think that's such an important, I really want to say like an important closing thought, especially for 2025, because this year is all about endings. It's all about closure and new opportunities and fresh starts. Some of them you will feel coming. Even if you don't know how they're going to manifest, you feel that shift coming. Others are going to be a smack across the head and you're going to be like, whoa, what just happened? It doesn't even matter if you expected it or not, the grieving process. I think about, there's this book, I don't remember exactly what it's called, but I remember when I was graduating from college, and it talks about how big transitions need to be grieved. It's, I don't know, the 7 big changes or something like that. Anyways, it never occurred to me that something as exciting as graduating from college was actually something that had to be processed and grieved because it was such a big shift. And I think that whether you're experiencing transitions like this where you're excited, but it's completely changing your life because now you're going into you're moving or a new career, or unexpected. I mean, in the US in particular, we're experiencing so many shifts in the job market and just so much stuff, right? The political environment. And so there's a lot of unexpected things that are happening for people as well. And just the importance of not sticking your head in the sand and not wanting to deal with how you feel about it. It's really important.
Yeah. You're reminding me of a message that Spirit had given to me pretty prominently the last 2 years, which was during times of transition, it's really important to carve out the space to be still. Because think about it, in transitions, they're very destabilizing. They can be very disruptive. And to your point, even if they're exciting changes, even if they're positive changes, they can be very disruptive to our lives. And in the busyness of the transition, right? You might be moving. Okay, that's going to be an incredibly busy transition, incredibly disruptive. You're changing your whole life and physical location geographically, potentially, but we can get very consumed by the busyness. And in the busyness, that is where we disconnect from ourselves. We little by little lose that connection. And it's even more important. It's like we have less time in those moments to meditate and carve out a moment of stillness. And it's even more important in the busier times to do that. I know for me, lately too, I've been noticing I'm getting busier and busier. And so where I've had plenty of time to meditate and do breath work and be still, now all of a sudden I'm finding, oh, I'm getting busier. And so that window feels like it's closing. And I actually had to check myself the other day. And I said, nope, I need to come back to me. And I really need to connect because I need to make sure that I'm staying balanced through this. And it was amazing because when I got still, even just for 2 minutes, all of a sudden I was in tears and I realized there was all of this emotion from the day that had built up all within me. And I needed to take time for myself to move through all of that and understand what that emotion was about before I went to bed so I could wake up the next day feeling aligned and ready to go. But had I not done that, there would have been a compounding effect as the days went on. And in the past, when I have done that, where it led me to was deep disconnection with myself. And it was just amazing to me. It was an amazing reminder of how quickly we disconnect from our true essence and how easy it is to just take a moment of pause to come back to it.
And I want to say it sounds easy, but as a Capricorn rising who always has a to-do list, what I had to start doing is I say to Spirit, I need you to bend time for me because I know I need to sit and process this. I know that I need to take a moment to breathe. And I'm freaking out because I have 45 minutes before I need to be somewhere. So what are we going to do here? And one of my teacher uses the phrase, stillness is the access point to acceleration. And so I always think about that getting still is actually what helps you move forward. And because I am magical child and I have full belief in the wild things that our spiritual teams can support us in, I say, okay, I hear you. I need to do this. You're going to have to bend time for me. You're going to have to create the scenario where this is not a problem that I just took this 15 minutes to sit and be, and I'm still going to get done what needs to get done. And it always works out. I'll get a text saying I'm running 15 minutes late. Wow, there we go. I just got that 15 minutes back. Or some tiny little thing that you didn't know was going to happen, but the universe will adjust itself so that you take care of yourself, because that is really what your spiritual team wants of you, is to be taking that time to connect.
It's a beautiful note to end on, because I think ultimately just ask for help. Ask your team for help with everything. You cannot out-ask the universe for help. So with that, Catherine, thank you so much for all of your beautiful contributions to this podcast. I am truly so grateful for you, for your wisdom and all of your talents. And I am excited to see how your journey continues to unfold. To all of our listeners, thank you for being here and listening as always. This episode officially wraps up season 3 of the Guided Podcast. And I just continue to be grateful to each and every one of you, especially those who have been listening since the beginning. And I've been looking at the stats lately. And honestly, the other day when I looked, I'm in awe of how many countries this podcast now reaches. So thank you all for being part of this journey. And while this may mark the end of season 3, it's definitely not the end of our podcasting days. I'm going to be taking a pause to rest and regroup before I launch into my new season. And in the meantime, you may have noticed some shifts with me. The past 2 years have really changed me. They've changed my work in some deeply profound ways. My business has taken on a new energy and direction, and now I'm incredibly excited to be guiding clients through my new program, which is called You Matter, a journey to finding self-worth in relationships. And so this work has really fed my soul. It feels like my true purpose. And when I return, you're likely going to see me leaning even more deeply into that path. And I want to make sure everybody is going to go to Catherine's YouTube page and follow Catherine Ann Energy on YouTube. While we're not going to be recording the lunation updates and astrological updates on this podcast anymore, Catherine is going to continue to share all of her incredible wisdom over on her YouTube channel. So you will find all of her details linked in the show notes. Follow her on Instagram at Catherine Ann Energy, and also follow her, subscribe on YouTube. So thank you all again for your continued support. Please feel free in the meantime to re-listen to past episodes, soak in the guidance and the wisdom they hold. We're always healing in levels and layers and spiraling through our healing. So all of that wisdom will continue to be relevant. And I can't wait to reconnect with you all on the flip side. So bye for now. Thank you so much for listening to the Guided Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I would be so grateful if you would share it with a friend or even leave me a review so we can ensure that it makes its way into the ears of listeners who need to hear these messages most. Until next time, may you remember how guided you truly are.